Every time you try to speak English, your brain translates first, and you don't even notice it happening until it's too late. And that translation habit may be the reason you still can't speak fluently, even after years of studying. And here's what makes it worse. You're not slow. You don't have a speaking problem. You have a thinking problem. Your brain is just using the wrong system. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why your brain does this and what you can do to change it. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever used a GPS? And even though you knew the way, you still followed the GPS voice? You didn't need it. You'd driven that road before, but something inside you said, just follow the directions. It's safer. And you trusted it, even when you knew a shorter way, because uncertainty feels dangerous. And your GPS, even when it's wrong. At least it sounds confident. That's exactly what your brain does with English. It already knows some English, maybe a lot of English, but instead of going directly to the words, it follows the GPS of your native language first. It takes the long route, the safe route, the slow route, and every time it does that, you lose speed. You start to doubt yourself, quietly, without even noticing. And worst of all, you begin to feel like English will never really be yours, like it belongs to other people, but not to you. I understand this feeling. I've carried it myself. There was a time when every English sentence I wanted to say had to pass through my native language first, like a letter that goes through 3 post offices before it reaches the right address. By the time the words arrived, the moment was gone. The conversation had moved on, and I was still standing there, holding a sentence that was too late. But here's something that might surprise you. Your brain doesn't translate because it's weak. It translates because it's trying to survive. And that changes everything. Because once you understand this, you stop blaming yourself. You stop thinking I'm not good enough, or maybe I'm just not a language person. Those thoughts are not the truth. They're your brain protecting an old habit. The professional who stays quiet during a meeting because translating takes too long. The person who knows the answer but can't say it fast enough. I've worked with all of them, and they all believed something was wrong with them. Nothing is wrong with you. Let me show you why. When you were a child, your brain built an entire language system from nothing. No textbook, no grammar rules, just sounds, faces, and repetition. By the time you were 5 or 6, your native language was so deeply wired that you didn't have to think about it. Words just came. That system became your brain's default road. The highway, fast, familiar, effortless. Now, when you started learning English, your brain had a problem. It already had a perfectly good highway. Why build a new one? Your brain, like any good GPS, always wants the fastest route with the least effort. So what does it do? It routes every English thought through your native language first. That's a long detour for one sentence. And the worst part is that this detour feels normal. It feels like how language works. Most learners don't even realize there's a shorter road. But there is, and your brain is absolutely capable of finding it. Before we go further, try something with me right now. Think of the word water. Don't translate it. Just think of water, the image, the feeling. Cold, Wet, clear. Did you see it? If you did, even for half a second, your brain just accessed English without translation. That direct road exists. Your brain already has pieces of it. The question is, why doesn't it use that road more often? And this is where things get really interesting. Because the answer is not what you think. Your brain has a comfort setting, like a thermostat. It always pulls you back to what feels familiar, what takes the least energy. And with English, that means back to the old road. And here's what nobody tells you. Every time you translate instead of trying to think directly in English, you're telling your brain, the old highway is the right one. Keep using it. You're not just translating a sentence, you're reinforcing a habit. Pause for a moment. How many times today did your brain translate something before you understood it? You probably don't remember, because it happens so fast you don't even notice. But it's happening. Every single time. I've seen this pattern in so many students. But recently, one student showed me something that completely changed the way I explain this problem. What she told me in our first session made me rethink everything I knew about translation habits. Her name is Yuna. She's 31, lives in Seoul, and works as a graphic designer. She came to me because she had been studying English for over 10 years and still couldn't have a simple conversation without freezing. 10 years. Think about that. She knew thousands of English words. She could read novels in English. She watched TV shows without subtitles. But when she opened her mouth to speak, everything disappeared. And it wasn't just casual conversations. It happened at work, too. In meetings. During presentations. Her international clients would ask a question, and she would sit there, smiling, nodding, pretending she was thinking, when really she was translating. And by the time the translation was ready, someone else had already spoken. She started to believe she wasn't smart enough for her career. And then something worse happened. She started to stay quiet. Not because she didn't know the answer, but because she didn't trust herself to say it in time. She began watching other people speak English in meetings, people who knew less than her, and she would think, why can they do it and I can't? That question, that silent comparison, is one of the most painful things a language learner can feel, and almost nobody talks about it. I've heard this story so many times, and every time, it breaks my heart. Because the problem was never her intelligence. It was her brain's GPS. Now imagine this. You've studied for years. You've spent money on courses. You've memorized hundreds of phrases. But when someone asks you, how was your weekend? Your mind goes blank. Have you ever felt that? Yuna felt it every day. And she was frustrated with herself. She told me, Emma, I feel so stuck. I know so much English, but when I try to speak, my brain becomes a traffic jam. A traffic jam. That image stayed with me, because that's exactly what was happening inside her brain. Too many routes competing at the same time, and none of them moving forward. So I asked her, Yuna, when you think about your day, your breakfast, your work, do you think in Korean or in English? She said, Korean. Of course. I said, so every thought you have goes through Korean first, and then when you want to say it in English, you're asking your brain to rebuild it from scratch, in real time, under pressure. She was quiet. Then she said, No wonder I freeze. Exactly. And that's when something changed. Not outside. Inside. Yuna didn't have an English problem. She had a routing problem. Her brain's GPS was sending every single thought through Seoul before it could arrive in English. So I didn't give her more vocabulary lists. I didn't give her more grammar exercises. Instead, I gave her something unusual. Something that sounded almost too simple to work. I call it a GPS override. Every evening, for just 2 minutes, I asked her to narrate her day, in English, alone, no audience, no pressure. I woke up. It was cold. I made coffee. I sat by the window. I thought about my project. Simple, boring, beautiful. The rule was, she could not translate. If she didn't know a word, she had to describe it or skip it. But she could never go back to the Korean highway to find the answer. At first, it was terrible. The first evening, she sat there for 2 minutes and only said 12 words. 12 words in 2 minutes. And most of them were I and the. She wanted to quit. She told me, "This doesn't feel like learning. This feels like failing." And I said, "I know. I know exactly how that feels. Because I felt the same thing when I was learning. That silence in your head, that emptiness, it feels like proof that you can't do this. But it's not proof. It's just your brain looking for a road that doesn't exist yet." But here's the important rule. I told her those 12 words were more valuable than 1,000 translated sentences, because those 12 words came from the English road directly. They didn't take the detour. They didn't pass through Korean. They were born in English. And your brain notices the difference. Let's try something together right now. Look at the device you're using to listen to this. Can you describe it in English? Not translate. Describe. It's small, it's black, the screen is bright. Whatever you just said, that came from the English road. You didn't need your GPS for that. By the second week, something shifted. Yuna told me, "Emma, today I was making coffee and I thought, this is too hot." And I thought it in English. Without trying. That moment, in a kitchen in Seoul, was the first time her brain chose the English road by itself. Because she had practiced it enough times, her GPS finally said, "This road works too." By the 4th week, something bigger happened. Yuna was in a meeting. An international client asked her a question, and she answered, in English, without translating, without freezing. The words weren't perfect. The grammar wasn't flawless. But the words came directly from her, from the English road. Her colleague looked at her and said, "Your English is really good." And Yuna told me later, "Emma, my English wasn't good. It was messy. It was simple. But it was mine. It came from me, not from a translation." And in that moment, something felt different. Not because she learned more, but because she stopped fighting herself. That's the moment I want for you. English that is yours. English that comes from you, directly, without asking your native language for permission first. So let me ask you something. And I want you to really sit with this. Every time you translate in your head, you're choosing the old highway, the familiar one, the safe one. And that road will never take you to fluency. But every time you try to think one small thought directly in English, you're choosing the new road. And every time you choose it, it gets a little smoother. You don't need to delete the old highway. Your native language is a gift, and it will always be part of you. But you do need to stop letting your GPS choose for you. You need to take the wheel. Not forever, not perfectly, just for a few moments each day. Tomorrow, at some point during your day, pause, look at something, and describe it in English. 3 words, 5 words. It doesn't matter. The sky is gray. My coffee is warm. I feel tired. Don't translate, just let the English come, even if it's just one word, because that one word, on the new road, is worth more than 100 perfect sentences on the old highway. And one day, you won't even notice the moment it happens. You'll be in the middle of a conversation, or standing in your kitchen, or thinking about your day, and an English thought will just appear, directly, without a detour, without permission. And in that moment, you'll realize something that changes everything. You were never bad at English. You were just trained to think in the wrong direction. Every class, every textbook, every translation exercise taught your brain to take the long road. And your brain trusted that training for years. But now you know, and you can't unknow it. Fluency was never far away. It was just hidden. And maybe you were never slow. You were just thinking in a system that was never built for speaking. And maybe the GPS was never broken. You just forgot you could drive without it. Tomorrow, try this, just once. Pause, look around, describe one thing in English, and then come back. And tell me what happened. What was the first word that appeared without translating? I'll be here, reading every single one.